Well, we're back. We're back with a very special guest. I'm not going to give too much information about who he is. I'm going to let him speak for himself. But I am super excited to spend the next half hour or so with my friend Rob Acker. Rob, thank you for joining the Still No Name podcast.
The No Name podcast, but I love your name, Lo. So so glad to be with you guys, being with you today and our fellow shepherds.
Yeah, now I know that we've had many occasions where we cross paths at Standing Stone events there in Southern California, but admittedly, I can't remember how long ago it was that you started with Standing Stone. So if you would take us on a little bit of an overview, a ministryology of your time with Standing Stone and what your current role within the organization entails.
Sure, be glad to. Well, the backstory was I pastored a local church in different roles, but at one church in a very strange way for 42 years in Southern California. But it was a church plant, so I was sort of one of the founding staff members, and then later I became the senior pastor, and loved it, enjoyed it, and at a certain age in my later 60s, mid 60s, it was time to transition out of that role, and so that was difficult to think about saying goodbye, and it forced, in a good way, like the questions are like, what will be next? What
Hmm.
might the Lord want me to do if I? And I assume He wanted me to still do something, and I had known Todd from probably 10 years prior when he, even longer, when he was pastoring. I knew him, and then I knew when he joined Standing Stone. So I had a little marker of this unique ministry that would give me a chance to still invest in pastors. And a lot of what I did in our church, um, being it was a larger church, we had staff, we were developing staff and leaders, so it felt pretty seamless. Like, of course,
Yeah.
I want to keep hanging out with men and women who are in the game and at various ages. So the short answer to your question is I joined in 2023. I started the process of applying, interviewing, that grueling process of 3
I
interviews,
know it's excruciating.
and then all that training and all that fundraising training. And so, by the end of 2023, I'd raised support and then jumped in, 2.5 years ago.
So wait a minute. So 42 years at the same church?
Correct. I know, very
Man, they
strange
what, they
resume.
grab a hold of you when you were a teenager? Did they recruit you
That's right. I
into?
was just started riding a bicycle. No, but I had a very strange. I mean, it was very maybe more typical back in my era because you go to college, and if you had the means or the resources or the scholarships, you could finish in 4 years. So I did. Then, because I was part of a college ministry at a larger church that had a strong vision of developing people and Christian leadership and service and all that, I sort of felt that call, like I should maybe go to seminary and just see if this leads somewhere. If nothing else, I could study the Bible. So, you graduate from college in June, and in September you're off to a seminary, and I was single, so I sort of fast tracked and finished that in 2.5 years or so, and then the church had been started a couple of years prior to that, so I had interned there during the summers and just started when
Wow.
I was 24. Yeah, so it was very strange.
Wow, you are one of those unicorns that had, like, you started and had a deep run. It reminds me of, like, my dad who was with McDonnell Douglas, and he was
Oh,
actually
yeah.
with Douglas, and then it was McDonnell Douglas, and then it was Boeing. I'm like, "You
Oh,
stayed employed with the same person?" He's like, "Yeah, why wouldn't I?" I'm like, "It just doesn't happen anymore, especially in our
yeah.
field." Right?
Right,
Like,
yes, yeah.
how many guys in, let's see, by my math, you're into your 3rd full year of Standing Stone, and, I mean, how many guys have we walked with that were facing tough transitions or got to us as a result of a tough transition, which is super disruptive. So I'm glad that you had that
Yeah.
long, deep run into, the same congregation. That's a gift.
Right. But I learned some things years ago that I still see in pastors today, which is it doesn't matter how long you might be in one place, there's still these chapters. And usually the end of a chapter, or maybe we should say end of a volume, means it's time to change ministries. And there seems to be something about the 7 to 10 year cycle, sometimes 12 years. And when I look back on my years, sure enough, there was a there was a 7 year chunk, there was about a 12 year chunk, and then there was like another 10 year chunk, and something disruptive happened, something significant. Whether we planted a church, we had quite a change of people and relocations, and so like the people I work with now, I mean, you're right. So many have had a hard landing from one ministry or in the midst of a transition, and I can almost always see Well, they've been at that role 7 years or 10 years, or they're entering it now, and then another year or so, and they might change roles or something. So
Well, and I'm sure that your role within that organization changed, and even the seasons of personalities with what the congregation needed. And I'm curious,
totally.
with your tenure with Standing Stone, what is your current role within Standing
Okay.
Stone, and share a little bit about what how that's evolved.
Right. Well, so I'm level 2. Wasn't sure I wanted to fill up my schedule completely with level 3, and that way I'd have a little flexibility to do some guest preaching or just hang out with family. I've got my wife and I in this season, of course, kids are married and there's grandkids, and though they most of them live far away, just having a little bit of flexibility. So level 2 has felt really good, and can still be involved in our new local church as retirees in that setting. Level 2 means I can jump in and connect with as many pastors as I feel I have bandwidth for. And then about a year and a half ago, so not too long into it, as the organization started growing in new ways and needed area leaders, and in this case, in my case for the Western states with Todd, you can't oversee 50 or 100 shepherds. So now there's about 10 of us area leaders, and we each have
Okay.
about 10 shepherds, and our shepherds are level 1s and 2s for sure, and I'm not sure I have any level 3s, but if they're level 3, they still have an area leader. So a significant chunk of my time now is actually with my Standing Stone shepherds that are doing the very thing that I do.
Yeah.
Again, some of them are still support raising, so that's another conversation and another way to pray for them. But once they're off and running, it's like hooray, yay, and sometimes we might compare notes of who we're working with, but usually those things are kind of separate. So
Well, that's been such a key development within the organization, is because we're not only growing with new numbers, but we're growing with people that are like geographically outposts in I wouldn't say remote parts of the country, but when you get to where you're talking about, Utah. We just had our first shepherd in Utah. And it's like
nice.
they are out there on their own. They have access
Right.
to a phone and a computer or whatnot.
Yeah.
But even more so than ever, I think it's critical that we have area leaders like yourself that God is raising up within the organization, so that there isn't that trap that we fall into of isolation, which is the very thing that plagues most of the people that we care for, is
Right.
neglect and bad decision making in a vacuum. So
Right.
the fact that we're doing that internally, and I know that the West is kind of the pioneers of how to do area leader, and really getting a support system in place for our shepherds. Todd has done a great job of finding folks like you. So appreciate you being involved in that. Even though you're not my area leader, I can appreciate
Hey,
you as an area
because
leader.
because if we were, we'd have a more chance to hit the golf course, one of the golf courses.
Yes, yes. If people aren't picking up on it, there's a shared
They're not picking
passion
up on it. There
of
we go.
golf.
Mine's in Northern Ireland. Yours is, of course, in
Yeah, and I don't
California there.
know, to be honest, I don't even know how that would work. I don't know, if you're a better stick or I'm a better stick. We probably should figure that out. We should probably find out
Just go have
who
fun.
who
Go
has,
have fun.
better game. But being out there on the course with you would be great. In fact, I'll have to, make sure the next time I'm in, your area that, we spray the ball around a little bit.
On that note, surprisingly and somewhat disappointingly, I'm not sure any of my pastors golf, if you can believe that. It's horrific. Todd golf or Todd is trying to get back to golfing, and so
Yeah.
we've gone out a couple times, and he has a pastor that joins us, and um, but usually when I'm with pastors, it's coffee, breakfast, lunch, coffee again. It's or Zoom. So we haven't had any 4 hour or longer sessions
Well,
together.
I had, back when we were still a developing organization, I can remember I took one of my pastors out and played golf, and Tennessee golf is not as expensive as it is in California,
Right.
so it's a
Right.
different monster.
Right.
But I filled out my reimbursement request, and I put tickets, I put the green fees for me and the pastor, because I was talking to him the whole time,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
in my
Totally.
mind I'm like, it's really no different than going out providing a meal, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
apparently, golf, green fees are not reimbursable.
Yeah.
So I got stuck with that one, but I will say I golf quite a bit with, partners that I
Yeah.
have, some of
Yeah.
my financial
Yep.
partners. It's just a
Right.
great time to give updates and share developments and cultivate those relationships. So,
Yeah. So I have done that too with partners.
yeah. And for anybody that's watching, it doesn't have to be golf. Like, find a pastime that you have. It could be, if maybe you like frequenting restaurants, maybe you like, you're more of a hiker, or, find ways that you can interact with your partners, that just build that relationship. Even if it means, getting outside your comfort zone and meeting them in one of their pastimes, I think it's a really valuable part.
Right. Right.
So, with your shepherding role, with your area leader role, if you had to boil down a couple things that you just really enjoy, really love, appreciate, what is it about your role that lights you up?
Well, obviously we're with brothers and sisters who are doing the very thing that we've been part of, that resonates with our hearts, that we're serving Christ's kingdom in various
Yeah,
ways, various churches. So to get time with them as a brother, to hear their journey, and most of the time I'm finding, and we're talking about just their lives, their personal journey, their health, how their relational health is, their spiritual health, their sometimes their physical health. I'd say 70% is usually just personal things about their own life. And then the balance is we might start talking about shop and the local church and some puzzles they're facing, maybe a particular problem, or an area they've never really explored, and that's fun too. I mean, I kind of that was one of the things I appreciate about Standing Stone. Is one of the first questions I asked years ago, that when you're sitting with a pastor, how much of it's personal, how much of it's
yeah,
organizational stuff, because I care about the local church and I care about these men and women in ministry as leaders. So I come in with no agenda per se, unless there's something we've sort of preloaded. Like we might say, "Hey, next time we meet, uh, let's go over these couple chapters." There's a couple guys who want to read a book, so that's an easy thing. Like, "Hey, let's read a book on this topic that you're concerned about, or have questions on, or are intrigued with, or maybe there's a wholeness inventory discussion." But usually, I come in just like open, like, how are you today? What are you celebrating? What burden are you carrying? Sometimes I'll ask it by what's resonating these days, and where is there dissonance in your journey, or in your family, or in the church. So it's a little bit, what I found is this just having to I never know what's going to happen. So just being trusting of God, like I need to be ready for anything that could come to me. And fortunately, there hasn't been any crazy stuff, but in the course of ministry, you're going to get some of those crazy things, disappointing things, very hard things. So just being there for these pastors, being that listening ear, different from when I was senior pastor and I had to cover both, either by myself or other staff members. You're covering both their personal lives, their development. Like we have to care for our fellow Christian leaders and their wholeness, if you will. And in a ministry setting, we've got to deal with the job description
hmm
and objectives and what we're working on. So that's always a dance in the local church, and that's why we say this in Setting Stone, and we say it in with our brothers and sisters, that your local church, no matter how good it is, cannot be the whole basis of your existence, your spiritual life. You need that outside, unbiased, fresh voice, good listening ears. I have no horse in the race, so to speak. Like it doesn't matter to me what's going on at your church. How are you? Uh, and especially one of the things I've noticed with pastors at various stages. In fact, here's one of my surprises. I kind of assumed most of our pastors would be, you know, 30 to 40 range, like early career. And there are plenty that way. I have a new pastor that's like 25, and he's in high gear, and he's
right.
learning things the hard way. But then I've found many pastors that are 55 and even 65 trying to figure out what the next chapter is going to look like. So regardless if they're 28 to 68,
Yeah,
helping them see lifelong learning, these normal chapters of leadership, and I really borrow from the late, I shouldn't say late, I think he's still Dr. Bobby Clinton, who taught at Fuller, I should say former, that's right, former professor of leadership at Fuller Seminary, and his seminal work on lifelong leadership and what are the different stages of development, of contribution, of specialization, and even of ultimate contribution. So being able to talk about some of those things, getting perspective, what sort of stage are you in, or what are you entering, what are you getting ready to leave? That's a little bit of some of the journey I have with these brothers.
Well, I love that you do that because it's so hard to know what they're facing, but we know they're facing stuff. Like we know that they're going through, whether it's the pressure of the young guy trying to prove himself and not know the balance of like maybe investing in his spouse and his kids when the church is demanding so much versus the older gentleman who's wondering if they still got gas in the tank. Are they still relevant? And one of the things that it's impossible to determine that unless we're secure enough and patient enough to just ask great questions and then listen. I don't know. You brought up that balance point of like personal versus professional. I think some guys literally just want to be a dude. Like they just want to hang out. Like they're tired of always being on or people talking to them because of what they can do or who they are in their church or the influence that they wield and being able to just say, hey, can we just go grab lunch? And talk about March Madness. Can we just go grab lunch and talk about our kids and not do anything heavy lifting? And that's very challenging for me because I want to come in with a plan and I want to come in with like I'm going to make this hour worth their while. And I want because I'm still in a lot of ways that young gun who's trying to like prove himself. And I want this people to find value in our time where it's like Lord saying no. The value is in the power of the presence and not bulldozing your way through what you think these men need and what you think these leaders are asking for. Let them tell you and
Right,
sit long
right.
enough to hear it. Be a good listener.
There was a great little saying from Chuck Swindoll years ago. He said, "I have nothing to prove, nothing to lose." And so, I kind of go in that same idea. Like, I don't have anything to sell or, have to shape this person. I'm going to be there on a receiving mode. But then what's interesting once there's a discussion or a meeting, then it's kind of like the brain starts working like, well, what might the Lord be saying? What might be next for this brother? Um, and is there maybe there's a particular follow up? Like I owe him an article. We talked about something. Said, hey, I have something I can send you on that issue. So part of the dynamic of I think some of these most of these meetings is there's a preparation, setting it up, confirming that we'll see you tomorrow morning or tomorrow at lunch, whatever. There's the meeting itself, which for me, they're rarely an hour. They're an hour 15, hour and a half, and then by some an hour and three quarters. Like, okay, now this is too long, or it's as long as we can go. But then there's a follow up. Like, okay, I need to make some notes about what we talked about, a key takeaway, and do I owe them something? Um, and not always. It's just, but there's that we think about, oh, this is a 1 hour appointment with the pastor. No, no, no. This is a combination of lots of pieces of this puzzle, including just the when you're carrying someone in your heart. Like, I'm going to meet with this brother tomorrow, and I remembered last time, he's got some challenges at the church. He's got a child who's struggling, and I'm gonna. So if nothing else, we're sharing in those. This is the Galatians 6 about bear one another's burdens. Help carry your brother's load that is so heavy for them. So that's what I'm finding is kind of the dynamic of I don't have an agenda, but I'm listening and seeing where they may be, and sometimes it's just a listening ear. It's just, or maybe it's just applause. Maybe it's again a reference, and it's fun when guys are taking notes or oh, that's a great idea, and they follow up on something.
And you're like, I mean, I didn't feel that great of an idea, but for them, it was like a dry sponge with, water just pouring over them. I'm curious with your tenure in Standing Stone, has there been a tough situation that you found yourself in or a challenging season that you had to walk with a pastor? And if you don't mind, how did you handle that?
Yes.
You can send a wellness check for both of us.
All right. Yes. There's been a couple for sure. One I'm still with. In both cases, they were pastors whose marriages were struggling or had already ended. And
Uh-huh.
we know that happens in ministry. I mean, I know that's part of your story as well, and seeing God's grace and His hand in all things. And that's a real delicate time when a pastor is just got that um, look of despair, of or confusion. And in the first case, there were some unique things about it, so I was able to refer it to another shepherd who had some expertise there. Um, then about a year later or more, I received another one, and a lot. I have several pastors that are referrals from the website, and sometimes Todd will talk to them first, or I'll do an intake, and then I end up staying with some of them, and some of them I'm still with, so it's kind of fun. In this case, those are almost always Zoom ones, but this other more recent pastor is also someone who marriage ended in as it happens in many churches, they don't know how to process that or support, so then they let him go. Uh, and so it's a the complexity of even his own career, his own identity
Yeah.
now, 50-year-old, and so those have been some of the harder ones. And fortunately, there's it's kind of a constellation. He has a therapist that's been helping on some specific things, um, but unlike many of my contacts where we might just meet once a month, of course, some are even every couple months. This guy, we've been meeting every week.
Yeah.
So, and he's very grateful. It's very focused. So it feels very different from a kind of a normal setting where we're going to be a little more casual. We're going to have coffee or lunch, and as I said, it could take an hour and a half or more. And this one is like almost like we're in the ER, and it's quick stuff every week. So
Is
uh,
it with yours? Because I know what my journey was like. Do you find that he's being hit with different challenges every week, or is he, rehashing through the same patterns? Is there a blend that you see? Are you emerging?
both, both,
Yeah,
yeah, totally both. And so you could see progression on some of the ongoing challenges, but you sort of circle back and you make some advancement, and then so there's some of the issues that are just sort of cyclical. But you can tell he's obviously processing
totally.
deeply. And then there's the surprise things, and so and then it brings up issues of his own relationships, his connections, his friends. He's got an elderly mother, uh, and he's got college kids, so there's lots of moving parts, obviously.
Well, I learned, and maybe this is for somebody that's listening out there as well, is for me, the core was this mourning process. And the easy low hanging fruit is like, oh, you're mourning your divorce. It's like, yeah, and mourning the loss of the family unit for my children, and mourning the loss of shared stories with my spouse as we watch our grandkids play, and mourning the loss of relationships because they're more her friends than they are my friends, and mourning the fear of what does this mean to my career. So it's like this mourning process, yeah, but the layers. And then all of a sudden you get
Yes,
through one and you're like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Like, what are we going to do for birthdays? What are
right,
we gonna do
right.
for Christmas? Like, the Christmas traditions are all trash. And until you've gone through a full calendar year in a lot of ways, you haven't even begun to grasp the negative, painful that go out in that mourning process. This is the illustration that I got when it came to the mourning process was, I was a beach kid, grew up in Southern California, and I can remember vividly when I was a little pup being in the shore break where you're out there running around and you're digging for, like, sand crabs, and you've got the whitewash coming up on you, and then every once in a while you stand up and you're like looking out at the beach with your back to the waves in the whitewash, and all of a sudden a big shore pounder would come and surprise you and just knock you to your knees, and you're like embarrassed, and that's to me like the wave of mourning. And they never stop, just like the ocean, they never stop, but over time the waves aren't as frequent that take your feet out from under you, and they're not as powerful. And so that was really an encouragement to me that the Lord said, hey, you're never going to
Yes.
stop mourning. but the
Yeah.
frequency and the intensity of those rogue waves are not going to be as big as they are today.
Right, right. That's a great illustration. And for this brother, it's still the first year. Um, so I can see where he's addressing the first holidays, spring break, and
Mhm.
every part of the calendar is another thing to process and his own journey. And then that's happening at the same time he's trying to discern how to make a living and what God's going to do with them. And he's got great gifts. And I think there'll be a way for him to on ramp to a ministry
For sure.
when he knows that he's accepted in a sense.
Well, that's the tough question in those really, really challenging, painful situations is this happening to me or is this happening for me?
Mm,
And with theology in my book, it was always, this is a painful thing that I'm going through, but God is going to do this for me. And if I'm open to the healing, I will emerge and be stronger and better equipped for whatever tomorrow brings. And so, but I had a lot of guys like you weighing in. So, so glad that you get to be on that journey with him because otherwise, those that space between the ears can be the devil's playground, and I'm sure you help him sift through some of those negative self talks. Great, so well done for being involved in his life.
yeah, it's a different, a whole different um, style or part of Standing Stone that I hadn't thought much about. I mean, I knew it happened, and I just didn't think I'd be in that myself with this brother. And yet I'm grateful to be able to connect with them. But I said, as I say, very different from sort of the normal, like, let's meet and how's your
Yeah.
life and your ministry and your family and what's encouraging you, what's struggling. That's sort of the norm, the bread and butter.
Well, you get to be a blessing, and all of us who get to enter into those challenges get to be a blessing for the people that we care for. I'd like for you to maybe shed some light on how being in Standing Stone has been a blessing for you and your family. What has this role allowed you to do or afforded you to do that has brought benefit to you and your family?
Good question. Well, as you ask that question, I immediately think of back to some of the Bobby Clinton development of leadership and how there sort of is this normal, should be this sort of normal progression that in your 60s, I'm 69 right now, in the next decade, Lord willing, I mean, these are years of unique. He has another term. He has ultimate contribution, and then he actually has the phrase afterglow, like we're still able to help. So even just to be able to share with my friends and for my wife and myself to realize there's ministry happening, and a little bit to my surprise, um, I guess it shouldn't surprise me completely, but I feel sort of surprised. People actually want to have input from someone older. They want to hear a little bit of the journey. They want to see someone who survived or
Yeah.
actually enjoyed it and isn't bitter or totally burned out. So part of the blessing is just knowing that there's ways to contribute back to brothers and sisters, and even at our church. So we did the traditional thing. We retired from a church. Generally, it's better not to stay there, not to cast a shadow on the next leader and give that leader freedom. So we went 10 miles down the road to a church we'd heard of and got involved there. We joined and it was kind of like, oh yeah, we're just new people visiting. Like they don't know us. And the first time the pastor broke bread and had communion, I'm thinking, I used to do that. I don't know if I'll ever do that again. I mean, it's like just these really tender times. But then also, besides the Standing Stone connections, my wife and myself have been able to build bridges with young couples at the church. Some are they're all in leadership roles. So they're not, um, the two have been pastors or are pastors. So there's a little bit of standing stone connection, but just generally they're Christian leaders. They're millennials. They're like our kids' ages. So
Yeah.
we weren't even sure this was appropriate. But like they want to be around us. We want to have a chance to pour into the next generation. So I never could quite understand why people retire. I don't judge this. Well, I'll say it. I'm not judging, but I couldn't quite get my head around like why would people just stop working and like just get in a motorhome or just whatever play bridge or pickleball all the time.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with any of those things. They're all fun. Or golf. Like I don't think I could golf. I can't golf four
No.
days a week. So for me, it's just the chance, like, we're asking men and women to serve well, to grow well, to be healthy. And then for those who are shepherds, and whether they be in their 30s, 40s, 50s, or 60s or beyond, we have a chance to do that all the more. So for me, it's like this is a way to stay close to Christ, stay close to what he's doing in his kingdom.
Well, one of the great advantages of Standing Stone that I see is that in most industries, it is really an all or nothing proposition. You have a full-time job, it's your career, you're a salaried employee. You leave the role. But within Standing Stone, it allows you uh, to reinvent or to boil down what is it that I love about my role, and I'm going to keep doing that part. And we become like specialists, right? Most every Standing Stone shepherd that I know has a heart for people because they're a pastor, a ministry leader, but many of them have a heart to keep other ministry leaders healthy. And we get to kind of take that one role out of our mix and not have to do the board
Yeah.
meetings, not have to do the
Right.
staff meetings, not have to do the 6 services on Easter weekend. We get to participate in communion, but not have to facilitate communion. And occasionally we get entered into those. But I think the fundamental shift with being a shepherd is we get to decide what we do with the back quarter of our ministry life, the back third of our ministry years. And that makes all the difference in the world because to me, that stuff lights
Totally.
me up. And I
Right.
don't have to worry about all the things that drain to be in ministry. So if you're listening out there, this is a organization where you can really put to work the things that you love about ministry and shepherding and caring for leaders, but do it in a way that doesn't jeopardize your family or erode quality of life in these last quarter of our time on this planet.
Yeah, yeah, amen. The joke was often said, that like if someone's starting a church, the joke was it's a young man's job because it's 100-hour a week kind of crazy thing, and if you're even just and if you're pastoring, no matter what, we know the intensity of that role. So just like you said, you're doing so many things, and the challenge for most people in ministry is am I doing at least the main thing I love the most? Like, is that 51% of my job? And for a lot of people, it's not. They're doing 10 things and nothing is life-giving, or the life-giving thing is only like 5% of their job or 20% maybe. So you're totally right that part of the gift of this kind of ministry is that we can specialize, we can it's very natural boundaries. If you sign up in your 30-hour a week level two, then work 30 hours. Not the other way. It's not 60 hours. I stopped counting at church over the years because like this is discouraging. Like I have energy, so I know God gave me energy. I didn't have to commute hours and hours on the road, but it's a lot. So, the gift of this season, making a
If you
contribution.
had, you kind of delved into a little hindsight there. If you had, now that you've been with the organization as long as you've had, if Rob of 2026 was able to go back and talk to Rob of 2023, what advice would you give to yourself knowing what you know now about standing stuff?
The only thing I think that's really emerged is just sort of the natural, um, trying to create some routine of the week. Meaning, when I first started, I thought, well, I got every day of the week. I can just do whatever, morning, noon, or night. And we sort of lost a sense of rhythm and day off. Whereas church life, when you're on a pastoral staff, it's like the week is very determined by the Sunday events, the midweek events, the staff
Yeah.
meetings, whatever. And I get all that. So it took me over. I mean, it's that at least a year or more, maybe maybe a year and a half to kind of realize, okay, some pastors take Monday off, but that being the case, I can still get in a rhythm of Monday, Tuesday,
Yeah.
Wednesday, Thursday. Um, and I'm finding enough guys take Friday off. I like Friday off. Um, Occasionally I'll have a meeting or I'll have something special, of course. And I still, back to the issue of even level two, like I will still get called by people to do a funeral. Well, I don't
Sure.
mind that. I mean, that's a very
Yeah.
pastoral thing to do. It kind of taps into some of my heart for evangelism and being able to
Hmm.
bridge with people. So all that say is the rhythm of having somewhat predictable. Like I know I can connect with people. If I have Monday to Thursday, I have I have 4 breakfasts or lunches or
Yeah.
coffees. I mean, there's plenty of time to get meetings in. Sometimes they're at night. There might be a Zoom at night. Um, but I had a Navy chaplain for a while, and so our connection time was almost always at night. That fit his schedule. But anyway, so just learning about some basic functional week, which made things, yeah, a little more doable.
Yeah, because we're the captain of our own ship. To pull from your Navy reference, we get to decide what we do. I know mine has gone through so many iterations. I, like yourself, am a level two, and there was seasons where I was like, I think I'll just work 6 days a week, 5 hours a day, and then I'll take one day off. And I was like, well, that's silly. That doesn't work anymore. And now I've shifted over to where I like to work 4 full days, and then take Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, and have a 3 day weekend. And I can remember the most reassuring and relieving conversation I had when I was going through my season of divorce was I talked to John Duvall, and and I'm like, John, I want to ask you a question. On the weeks that I have my kids, can I work a short week? And then the weeks that I don't have my kids, work a long week. And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, really? Really?
Yes,
And
yes,
so
beautiful.
that was so profound to me because I was like, wait a minute. So when I have my kids, I can work from when I drop them off at school to when I pick them up, and then I can have the rest of the afternoon. And when I don't have them, I'll just stack and work a 10-hour day. And so that's what I did for probably the first 3 years, maybe even 4 years of that rhythm. And now, because they're teenagers, they don't really want to talk to me after school. They're
Right,
like,
right.
I'm going to go do this, Dad. But now I'm back into that rhythm of 4 days, three off, because I'm only a 30-hour a week shepherd. And it really is a wonderful flexibility. And I'm glad that you're making it work. And I know that just adds to quality of life for all of us, that we get to decide what our family needs, and it's a great byproduct of this ministry. I have one final question before I cut you loose and let you go.
Sure.
You've now experienced the Nameless podcast. Do you have any names that you'd want to throw into the loop, as a possibility for what we're doing here with this podcast for our fellow shepherds?
Funny. I'm not sure I'm very good at creating good names, maybe like, I don't know, the toolbox, I don't know,
Those are
Lowe's,
great. That is a great.
Lowe's Garage. What do
No,
you
my goal is to get out of this role of the podcast interviewer as soon as possible. There are plenty of other people that could do this as well. But I'll take your answer as a defer to other folks that have some others, to some other folks who have ideas. But it's been a great time with you. I'm so glad we got to spend it together and learn a little bit more about your journey and what you're currently doing. So thank you so much, Rob, for being here and spending
Well,
that.
I'm grateful because you're one of the first ones I talked to in Standing Stone,
Yeah,
and so we kind of had a nice connection time then, and hit it off, and so here we are years later, still talking, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the national gathering this
absolutely.
September.
And I'll
So
have my sticks with me just as a
I'm
shameless plug.
I'm planning to have mine. So I'll do some research on. There's a few choice gems in that area, I believe. So
It's great. Well, let's do that. We'll meet up together. And anybody who's watching, we want to see you at the conference as well, because it really does make this organization feel a lot smaller, a lot more accessible. And you're going to meet some of your friends that you're going to spend the next decade or two with, linking arms and doing ministry together. So thank you for linking arms with us, Rob, and I appreciate the time. And we'll see you in North Carolina.
outstanding. Thanks so
All
much,
right.
Lo.
Take care.